Hey guys, how are you doing? Today I'm doing Evan Boland's Child of Our Time. The poem was inspired by a press photograph showing a firefighter carrying a dead child out of the wreckage of the Dublin bombings in 1974. This is a very Irish relevant poem. I had to actually read about it because I'm not Irish, so yeah. A reading of the poem, first and foremost, this is an elegy for the untimely death of a child. You need to know what an elegy is. So, the mourning of somebody's death. It bemoans the senselessness and irrationality of the child's slaughter in an act of public violence. Why should we do all these, commencing such war and bombings, and then who gets to suffer? The kids, the children. So this song, which takes from your final cry, its tune from you unreasoned and its reason, its rhythm from the discord of your murder. This is very important. In the second stanza, the keen sense of loss is encouraged by the mournful litany of the literary rituals of childhood. Now look what she's naming. She's talking about the intimate moments, the rituals around sleeping and waking of children. And it says, with rhythms or with rhymes for your waking, rhythms for your sleep, names for the animals you took to bed, tales to distract, and legends to protect. You know how we're being told tales, and we read tales as kids, as children, before we go to bed, as things to encourage us, things to make us go to sleep, or we take animals to bed, things that we love, and like when we feel safe around, like a bunny or like a lion or like whatever it is that you take into bed as a kid. And these legends that we get to know from our parents, like, I don't know, whatever it is, like Hercules or God knows what, to protect things that make us, like, instead of having this and all this warmth and hopeful or hope as a kid, as a child, you get to have death, you get to die. It's very mournful. The sense of loss is compounded by guilt, in that it is the adults who should have been the guardians and guides of the child. And it says, we who should have known how to instruct. And the elegy finishes in a prayer that adult society will learn from this horror expressed in the paradox. Like, this is supposed to be a lesson for the people who are fighting in the war constantly, because always the weak ones are the ones who pay the price. And in this case, the children are the weak ones. So basically, and living must learn from you dead, and so construct a better method of social interaction, so that the death will not have been in vain. As it says, find for your sake whose life are idle, talk has cost a new language. The poem is also a searing condemnation of violence, one of the main themes of this. So I would say it is one about loss, a theme about loss, or the whole poem centers revolves around loss, violence, sympathy, maybe learning a new lesson, and that is like not to engage in war anymore. So basically, society stands accused. Our times have robbed your cradle. So the person, the poet, the speaker, blames, when he says our times, talks about the society, mainly adults. The only hope is that society would awaken to the reality of its actions, and that the child might sleep in a world where your final sleep has woken. So basically, I hope that the child did not die for nothing. I hope now the world has learned. Guess what? The world will never learn. But anyway, this is what Elizabeth Bishop wrote. What Evan Boland wrote in 1974. The poem could also be read as a comment on the failure of communication. So this is also something that you might want to note down when you're arguing about like either the themes or when you're talking about what is the poem really about. Same thing. The entire poem is couched in language terminology. It is a lullaby, a song inspired by a final cry, a tune with rhythms. Now, in the second stanza, loss is expressed in terms of language deprivation, and child hearing is seen in terms of fostering language. It says rhymes for your waking, etc. The only way forward from this conflict and violence is described as a new language, perhaps meaning a new lesson, like hopefully now nothing is going to happen. And now the failure of language is associated with death and destruction. There's no communication between children and adults. Adults keep doing whatever they want, regardless of the fact that the kids are hurt all the time. Language is the only bulwark against chaos. And this is the positive message of this bleak poem. Poetry, the most artistic expression of language, can be created out of this pain, this tune from your final cry, as it says. It signals a victory of order over chaos, reason from your unreasoned end, rhythm from discord. It offers a chance to rebuild broken images and visualize a better society. So people of Ireland, people of who have bombed this, all this, please take note. You have killed a lot of children. This child who has died hasn't only died for himself, by himself, but there are so many children out there who lost their lives in 1974 in the Dublin bombings. And like, all this, you guys should learn something from. So this is like kind of the thought bubble of the entire poem, right? So there's a delicate balance of emotion achieved in this poem. The brutal reality of the killing is never denied. Like, we know, listen, you guys committed a crime. You, whoever bombed us, you shouldn't be doing that anymore, the society. And the fact of death is faced squarely. The references to death are sometimes veiled in poetic terms. Like, it says, your final cry, your final sleep. It doesn't really say you died, but it gives you that in a very different way. Like, there are poetic terms used. The phrases are not really straightforward, all right? Or they are actually intellectualized. Like, you gotta think about it. As it says, and the discord of your murder. Here, the aspect of death dwelt on its discordance, its out-of-tuneness, the disharmony of death, or the child's broken body is rendered as your broken image. The inversion of the natural order of life and death in the killing of a child is expressed in the paradoxes from your final cry, its tune. The kid, the child, isn't supposed to die at a young age. This is what Mother Nature is like, unless they're born with a disease. But clearly this child we don't know anything about died much less earlier than they were supposed to, alright? So it's kind of like reversing the roles in society, like in how life should actually function. Consideration of this death is poeticized or intellectualized to some degree. But this is like, I don't know, feelings of grief and loss, guilt and resolution to learn a better way are all conveyed. Like, the point is, learn from your mistakes. Death is a kind of sleep, where it says, sleep in a world your final sleep has woken. Altogether, the poem seems to be an interesting combination of dirge and lullaby. So you guys gotta like, you know, find out what these terms really mean for you to be able to understand this. Anyway, it's a very simple poem. It's a fun poem to read. It's not that complicated because it all revolves around learning from your mistakes and how adults are always responsible for the killings of innocent creatures, whether that be animals or plants or children or anything that, you know, that's fragile and weak. And in this case, it's a child who has nothing to do about the war, nothing to do with the war, and because it can't communicate, this is important, the communication in this poem is also very important as a theme, because it really can't communicate and can't express how it feels or desires, whatever it is, then it dies. Basically, this is it. Guys, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me or just drop down a comment below. Thank you very much and have a good day.